evening, Source Nation, and welcome to Healthy Cooking with me, Chef Keith. This is a show where I will show you how to prepare healthy meals, but before I go any further, let me thank our sponsors who have made this show possible, and they are Scott's Care Foundation, that's Scott's Cares with an S Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hitmasters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. In today's dish, we will be making beef short ribs with egg noodles and asparagus, and on those egg noodles we're going to use some onions and mushrooms in a red wine sauce. Ought to be delicious today, people. So, Source Nation, in today's dish, of course, you know, don't be afraid because we're talking about beef short ribs. Just know that with this particular dish, I'm going to use 3.5 pounds of short ribs. Now, don't be afraid of me saying 3.5 pounds. This is actually a meal I'm preparing for 3. And remember, in my idea of healthy cooking, it has more to do with using fresh ingredients and basically using a basic style of cooking to cook those, and portions are even more important than any of those things. And for those of you who are vegans and they don't want the beef short ribs, during the course of the time I am cooking this, I will also tell you how to make the same exact dish meatless as well. So what I'm going to do is what you can see here is I'm actually seasoning. I have a tablespoon of salt, tablespoon of pepper, tablespoon of paprika, and a tablespoon of cumin. Now, I like cumin. It adds that smoky flavor to whatever you're cooking. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to season each side of the short ribs in a bowl here. And the beef can actually stand up to the seasoning. So don't worry about it as far as how much seasoning you're going to use. You just want to put a nice little coat seasoning. The seasoning is for the meat, but primarily it's going to be for sauteing the vegetables as well. Now, in this bowl here, I am going to take, also I have some flour here, so what I'm going to do is start just drizzling the flour over the top of the short ribs. And like I told you guys before, you don't want to get intimidated by cooking. I'm going to make these things very, very simple for you. So even if you're a novice chef, or maybe you're advanced, it will still be easy for everyone to do. So I'm going to turn over each piece after I've already seasoned everything. I didn't use all the season, just notice that, because it's not about over seasoning. Remember what I told you guys last week, that with seasoning you can always add to and never take away. So you had to be careful not to over season, but you know, with the beef it can kind of stand up to the seasoning because you know, with the fat and things like that. Don't be intimidated by this dish at all being unhealthy. We're going to cook most of those down. You want to use the type of cuts that have this type of marble in them, because it actually helps tenderize, and because the short ribs have bones in them, they also help in the tenderizing process as well. So I'm just going to move everything around, make sure everything's coated nice with the flour. We're going to get a nice little flour look, and there we go. Everything looks ready to go, and the flour is basically just to add a nice little crust to the outside. Of course, you guys know I like a little crispy crust on my meat. Now, I have my skillet, and most of the time you'll see me using cast iron. Cast iron is my favorite type of skillet to use because of the way it transfers the heat and evenly all over the pan. And also, maybe sometime in the future I'll show you guys actually how to season your cast iron, where this is basically the one pan that you can use in your kitchen that will pretty much last you your entire lifetime. But in order for it to last your entire lifetime, it's all about taking care of it properly and seasoning it is the most important part of it. So I didn't put a lot of oil in here. We maybe put about a third of a cup of oil, and you can use any type of oil. In this particular oil right here, I'm using olive oil, but any type of vegetable oil or oil that you use will work just as fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bone side up on the short ribs here, and I'm just going to use, and for 3.5 pounds, for those of you who are not going to watch the video, if you're not going to watch the video, that's up to you, but I promise you, watching this video, you will see just how tasty and easy this is to cook. I'm going to put the meat side down with the bone side up here, and you see we got a nice little sizzle going on here. It already smells amazing. We're basically going to do about 3 to 5 minutes aside. We're on medium heat, and we're just going to let it sit. And just remember, if you're looking, you're not cooking. So you don't want to just mess with it too much. You're just going to lay it down and trust the process, people. Don't think about moving things around. Just leave them right where they are, and everything will work out fine. I mean, you guys trust me, right, Source Nation? Because, hey, this is healthy cooking, and I am here to help everyone become successful at this cooking technique. Now, what I'm going to do here is just going to let it sear down, and it smells amazing already. I don't know who was the first person to actually introduce the heating up of oil and meat, but I'm sure for most of us or a few of us who eat meat, this is kind of intoxicating. So as you can see, I'm turning everything. It's just getting brown on the outside. We're not attempting to cook everything through, straight through. All we're doing is basically searing in those seasonings that we added a few minutes ago. This actual dish is going to take pretty much all day for you to cook, but don't get intimidated by that, because this is the perfect type of dish. Maybe you want to set on for a Sunday, or you want to put down in the middle of a Saturday brunch type style thing, or maybe before you go to work in the morning. You want to do the preparation for it first and set everything down and get everything ready. And for those of you who like to have nice, pleasant smells in your home, slow cooking these short ribs all day, and you coming home from work and you're like, oh gosh, I'm tired, but I'm glad I made dinner early. And you will be thinking about these short ribs all day long. And the minute you walk through the door, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so excited and ready to eat. So I'm just going to turn everything over on the side and just get a nice little sear. Like I said, it's just about heating up and crisping up the flour and the seasoning and making the outside crispy. I'm going to move over to my cutting station one more time, and as you can see, I'm just going to take a medium-sized onion. And for those of you who are want to cook this dish in a vegan style way, we can still, you basically want to skip that step all the way, but I'll show you how to do that as well. I'm just going to give this basically a good slice. I'm not going to dice the onions here. I'm going to leave some nice large pieces here. Just going to give it a nice little chop. Nice. And we're going to leave this on the cutting board. And remember what I told you, one of the most important things about cooking is to make sure that you have the proper utensils. And as you can see, my knife, this is a perfect style knife for cutting. A lot of people I see are cooking with all kinds of knives, steak knives and butter, well, nobody's cutting with a butter knife, but this actually makes your cooking simpler. And so if you want to invest in some things, you definitely want to invest in a good cooking knife, and you want to invest in a good cast iron skillet. Just my opinion. And so as you can see, I'm going to take some fresh mushrooms here. And for a lot of people that don't like mushrooms, that's fine. You don't have to add them. But for those of you who are into the veggies, I recommend that you use as many fresh vegetables as possible in your cooking. Even though sometime in the future we will be using frozen, for the most part, I like to use fresh vegetables when I can and when things are in season. So with these mushrooms, I'm going to chop them up a little bit finer than I did the onions. And there we go. Now we're going to, as you can see, I moved on to the second batch of short ribs. I took the other 3 that I was cooking, and I put them in the pot that I will be using for the slow cook. Now, as you can see, everything's going to sit there and rest, so it's cooking a little bit more, but we're going to slow down the process. But I put the next batch in the pan, and as you can see, it's nice and brown on the outside. It's still rare on the inside, but don't be concerned about that. That's just part of the cooking process. Now, I'm just letting everything sizzle and sear here. This is an amazing smell, and as you can see so far in the cooking, this is actually very, very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. You know, a lot of times when we eat food, or we look at food on TV, or we look at things or taste things at restaurants, we look at like, man, I couldn't possibly make this dish. But like I told you guys before, somebody like me who was pretty much a novice up until I became a single parent, I basically had to learn. And so in this way, here you have something simple. Years ago, I probably wouldn't have known how to cook short ribs. I probably would have tried to cook them like steak or something like that, or maybe put them on a grill and things like that. But there are certain cuts of meat that are made perfect for slow cooking, and this is one of them. So what I'm going to do now here, that looks fantastic. Look at the color there. We got a nice crispy skin on it. And like I said, we're going to go to about 3 to 5 minutes per side. We're just flipping it on the side. I'm not actually doing every side, just the 2 major sides on it. And 3 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Just to be safe, to get the type of crispiness that you are looking for. So, look at that. That is fantastic. The sizzle that you hear in the back is just the oil, and the fat is just kind of cooking down off of that. And I'm going to take every little piece, and I'm just going to drop it and align it nice into the slow cooker. You see, that entire process probably lasted all of maybe 15 minutes to do all of that. That's right, 15 minutes, and that's the main portion of the dish. And here we go. We got our mushrooms and our onions, and we're just going to throw them right back in the same oil. You can see all that fat that was cooking down off of the short ribs is still in the pan with the oil, and all the seasoning that was being cooked and just reduced down into the oil is all there. And there we have it. We're just going to add the mushrooms and onions, and oh yeah, this is amazing smell. You know, whoever thought that onions and mushrooms and oil was a great idea, they were a genius, and I want to give them a high five wherever they are because this is amazing. And I'm just going to toss all the onions and mushrooms into this pan. Now, I know a lot of people are used to seasoning. This is basically a simple saute that I'm using right here. And basically in a saute, you're just basically cooking down the water that is in the vegetables. And under ordinary circumstances, I do use butter for this, but I'm not going to use butter this time because I do have the fat from the meat that was already cooking, so I'm not really going to use any more fat to this. We're going to keep this as straightforward as possible. And like I said, healthy cooking to me is about fresh ingredients and using a limited amount of seasoning, and it's all about the cooking techniques. You want to make sure that you practice good, healthy cooking techniques. And also remember, it's really nice not to eat so much processed food and things like that you don't know how they were prepared. Preparing things yourself is always the best way to go. It takes a little bit more time, but it's always the best way to go. Now, I got everything kind of reduced here, and you can see the onions are translucent. Now, remember, I didn't season everything up front. If you season your mushrooms too early, they will not brown. So you make sure not to add it too soon. Now what I use right here is, oh my goodness, 2 cloves of minced garlic here, and I just dropped it down, and then the smell when it hits the oil and the onions and the mushroom. And now I'm going to take some of that seasoning now that I had earlier, but I didn't use a lot of it. I'm going to add the seasoning to the mushrooms, and I sauteed everything for approximately 5 minutes in the pan. And as you can see, I'm just going to toss everything lightly. Oh, and there's our special friend. There's a little red wine. I use here about a half a cup into the pan, and as you can see, once the red wine hits the cast iron skillet, everything is bubbling, and actually the red wine actually helps you clean the skillet because it takes up all those little juicy and tasty bits that were stuck to the bottom of the pan, and you can just use your spatula and scrape everything up. So now the vegetables are extra seasoned. As you can see now, we're going to let everything reduce down, cook that wine down. It's going to make everything taste so sweet. And so here you go. Ooh, it's nice and bubbly. I'm just going to take it off the stove, and there we go. Look at that. We're going to dump everything right over the top of all the meat. We have the onions, the mushrooms, the garlic, everything right down here on top of the meat. And that is it. Look at that. You prepared that in approximately 20 minutes, right? And you've never smelled anything if you haven't smelled beef being slow cooked with onions, mushrooms, garlic, and red wine sauce. When you walk in your house, you're going to say, wow. So I'm going to take my asparagus right here. I'm just going to cut the ends off the asparagus just to get everything ready. And so, as you can see, my pan is really clean. All it took was a little bit of water, and everything came up because that red wine got everything out of the pan. I'm boiling some water here, and in this water, I actually put a bouillon cube. For those of you who are vegans, you want to use a vegetable bouillon cube here. And I've seen a lot of people mess up noodles by not putting them in boiling water. You need your water boiling. So I add a little sauce. I add a bouillon cube. This is a beef bouillon cube because I want to keep with the consistency taste of the bouillon. Now, when it comes to portions, as far as measuring, I measure about 1.5 handfuls per serving per person I'm preparing for. So in this one, I'm just going to keep rocking the egg noodles. These are actually egg noodles. You can use whole wheat egg noodles as well to keep this extra healthy for you. Now, through the magic of television, 6 hours later, we're looking in the slow cooker, and as you can see, I am actually sticking a plastic fork in the beef short ribs, and it's going in very easily. 6 hours, that's how long it takes. And if you go any longer, it's not going to hurt a bit. I'm going to use as you can see, my water is boiling for my noodles. Right? And the noodles are only going to take about 5 minutes to boil. When you put your asparagus in the pan, I used a cap full of oil for these. And I'm just going to rub the asparagus across the bottom of the skillet here. We just want them to be lightly oiled. We don't want it to be too greasy. And then, of course, I'm using the same seasoning. Just keep in mind, I've only used the same seasoning for every single dish I've used in this particular recipe. So you don't have to over season. Remember, that was enough to go for the entire dish. No extra stuff allowed or added. So I'm just going to toss everything in the seasoning here. Just get a nice little coat. Asparagus take about anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. I like them to be crispy. Some people like them rubbery or soft, like they like their green beans sometimes. But me, I like to have a little crunch. So we're just going to toss everything in the skillet here just to kind of heat them up and kind of get everybody happy. The seasoning is now sticking because of the little bit of oil we use. And so all of our asparagus are going to be nice and ready to go. And that's just 2 to 3 minutes, right? It's fantastic. And woo, wow, this smells amazing. And I'm not kidding, because I would like for some of you to tell me that you put this dish together and you tell me how it smells. And I'm just going to toss everything for a few minutes, keep it moving so it doesn't burn. And now it's time to plate. And what I'm going to do is, after I take everything out, there's 2 short ribs per plate, and then I'm just going to take all of those mushrooms and onions and garlic, that sauce that was actually made from the slow cooker, and I'm going to just start pouring it on top of the noodles. Oh my goodness. And there it is. That was simple. You can't tell me that was not simple. I know you guys watch a lot of other networks when it comes to food and cooking, Source Nation, but here on the Source Network, we're going to make everything very, very simple, very, very easy to do. And this, I'm telling you, it looks magnificent, it tastes magnificent, it smells magnificent, and this, people, was very, very affordable. The most expensive thing you have to buy is the short ribs. It might cost you about $10. The egg noodles are not expensive. And so, there you have it. But before I go, I don't want to forget to thank our wonderful sponsors at Scott Cares Foundation, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Urban Grandstand Digital, Cat Photography, Hitmasters, New Covenant of Praise Worship Center, and PS Photography. Now, Source Nation, join me next week for another amazing dish that you guys will find very easy and tasty to prepare. Follow me on Twitter, the Mr. K Show 1, or on Instagram, the Mr. K Show 1 again, or on Snapchat, the Mr. K Show 1. You can also like our page on Facebook, which can either be Keeping the Streets or Healthy Cooking with me, Chef Keith, and that's at Source Nation. Just remember, healthy, affordable, tasty, gourmet style cooking is as close to you as you are to your kitchen. I'll see you next week.